100 years. And there's a new definition of income that was in the governor's budget this past year. It's a formula based on FAGI, Federal Adjusted Gross Income. And so the purpose of our asking the town board to increase the income limit is so that our lower income seniors who are most vulnerable for displacement do not get displaced during a revaluation. So as we all know, it's been a very aggressive real estate market these past several years. And the last thing that any municipality wants is for our lower income, most vulnerable seniors to become displaced. So the purpose of, again, the purpose of raising the income level is to, capture more lower income seniors. Now, to date, I did a mailing of a couple of hundred individuals who are either qualifying for Enhanced Star and or receiving the Enhanced Star check. And I probably processed just under about 100 individuals. And so out of those 100 individuals, 20 qualified so far. So it's not more than we expected. It's not less than we expected. We're delighted that we captured as many. So interestingly, some of those seniors would have qualified. They're so low income, and we didn't know who they are because we don't capture income information. They qualified even without this income table. So we were delighted that we captured those 2 or 3 individuals and are pretty glad that we captured the other 17 or so. They've already been entered into our system to test out where they might land and how the result of the revaluation would impact them. So, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. We've also asked the Roxbury Central School to adopt this income table. They're having a meeting. They're very positive about it. They're having a meeting this Wednesday to pass that. So again, we strongly encourage the town board. We think it's in the best interest of our seniors at a very, very minimal, less than pennies per thousand cost to the general population to adopt this exemption.
Okay, with that being said, I will open the public hearing at 6:04 or 6:05, I guess. For anyone who has comments concerning this local law, please indicate you're interested in speaking.
I guess I'm
Sure.
I did not sign in that I wanted.
That's okay. You don't have to. This is a public hearing.
Okay,
so
great.
You're allowed to speak anyway.
Okay, so my name is Jane Williams and I live in the Denver area.
Yep.
But so what I understand is this, we as a town could set this at any limit, or right, that each town has the ability to set their own limit
Yes.
of it.
Yes, that's correct.
So if it was deemed because of the breakdown of the residents of the area in this age, can you look at the when you're looking at statistics, can you find what the breakdown is other than through the STAR, through the school exemption?
Not really. We don't really have access to people's personal financial information unless they apply for something like this for STAR or any other program that requires a financial responsibility or a financial check on it, whatever. So no, we really don't have any way to look at the whole population of the community and say 20% or 50% or whatever would qualify. It's kind of a best guess scenario. I guess this is the best way to put it.
And what did you use to come up with the 36,499 as
I'll
the
let
math?
Yeah, Jason, we talked about this a little bit. So we actually looked at several different measures, and there's a state maximum, and we did not feel comfortable recommending the state maximum. However, we did look at other indicators such as the qualifications for the HEAP exemption, HEAP Energy Assistance Program. And so the top line number that we recommended to the board is actually that 36,499 is actually a reasonable, and again, it's, because we don't have information about where people's incomes lie, and because the new definition of what is income is brand new to everyone across the state. We did not want to go really high. We wanted it, we actually raised it between 12 and 14% from where we are now. And it just so happens that the new number that we chose puts us at the number, the household of one for the HEAP energy assistance program. And so the purpose again of this exercise was we did not want to overburden the general population at large. We wanted to pick something that was reasonable. And so we could again determine, so out of the 100 or so individuals that have actually reached out to say, I might be interested, or, do I qualify? We picked up 20 people. And so as time goes on, we'll do another outreach mailing next year, as we did this year, and say, do you qualify, for people maybe that didn't respond, or for people that are in the Star Check program. So, I tried to make that net as big as possible.
And for another town our size in the region, do you know what are most of the towns in Delaware County putting their maximums at this?
I'm not aware of.
I'm not aware of any either, Jane. I would say that our income level is probably one of the higher ones in the area, but I don't get their tables. I'm not familiar with their tables. I can tell you that last year Delaware County, because remember, this exemption has to be ratified and passed by each levying body, town, county, and school. And last year Delaware County increased their limit to 27,000 and change. And that was the first time that they've raised it in many, many years, over 10 at least. And so many of our seniors were getting almost no, because the percentage is calculated against each one of those tables, town, county, and school. Gilboa School District has a very low threshold also, which is a little bit disheartening that they haven't adjusted that. So I don't collect them. I do collect Middletown. It's very comparable to our old one because Middletown tended to do what we do. So but that's the only one that I know for sure.
This isn't something that all the towns are doing, right?
Well, they're not. So remember, Mike, we're doing this not because we thought it was a good idea. We're doing it because of the revaluation and the increase in assessed valuations. And again, looking to make sure that our lower income seniors aren't displaced because they can't afford to pay their town, county, or school tax bill.
Is this adjusted gross income or just gross income?
The legal definition is the federal adjusted gross income with certain conditions. And those conditions are actually calculated in a spreadsheet. So if somebody calls me and says, hey, listen, I've got my 2022 tax return in front of me. Can you tell me if I qualify? I go, yeah, I need these 5 numbers from your tax return. I enter them into the calculator, hit enter, and it tells me under the basic option, which is what we're under. And most of the towns in Delaware County are under. I don't think anybody has done anything differently because again, it's so stinking new. So we can tell, in minutes, whether or not an individual qualifies. Again, so it's FAGI with certain adjustments.
So the only way we would know that is to call you.
Yes. Yeah. Or come in and bring the tax, bring in your return the way you and I did and, 79 other people.
Isn't there any way you could just get the information out?
No, because I'm not publishing the calculator. Yeah, I mean, you could read about, listen, the law is actually on the town's website. It's on the link that I have on the town website actually goes to the state website and you can read more than you'd ever want to know. And it's not gonna really give you, it's not going to encapsulate it the way I just did it for you.
And there's not like line number 11 on your senior tax.
You could try. Read it on the state website. I have it linked on our
The
homepage.
problem is it's extremely complicated. Instead of saying X dollars, it's here it says this line, here it says that line, here it says a different line, which is why the state assessors association came up with this calculator that we can use, which takes all of those things.
It eliminates the guesswork and I don't have to interpret the law for each individual, so.
Okay, that being said, are there any more comments concerning this public hearing?
Yes, thank you, Jane.
Hearing none, I will close the public hearing at 6:12, I guess it is. And we will move into our regular meeting, starting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God. Before we get into the meeting, I would like to acknowledge and let everyone know of the passing of our councilman Ed Rader last month. Ed was a long time supporter and backbone of our community in our town. He served as councilman from 1994 till 1997. And then again from 2000 until 2024, a total of 28 years of service to the town of Roxbury. As I said, Ed spent his whole life in Grand Gorge, raised a family there. He has been infinitely valuable on this board. And we will all miss him very much. I would like to call for a moment of silence. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. Minutes, we have a couple adjustments to the minutes from January 2nd. Everybody's had a chance to review them. Can I have a motion to accept those minutes?
I'll make that.
I'll second it. And all in favor?
Aye.
We do have several requests to speak tonight. I'm going to start with John Wallum, who is our New York State Real Property Tax Services representative for this area. John has worked with our tax assessment department with Stephanie and Bob for many years, and he's very knowledgeable. He's going to speak concerning our reassessment that we're working on shortly. So, okay, John, nice to meet you. See you
Nice to
again.
meet you again. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is John Wallum. I work with the New York State Department of Tax and Finance, specifically the Office of Real Property Tax Services. We do strictly property tax administration. We don't do the things that people hate, like the audits and that stuff. So don't hold that against me. We're here tonight because the town has reached sort of a milestone in the work it's doing on its reassessment project. So very briefly, what is a reassessment? Basically, the law in New York State and virtually in all states in this country, and frankly, in most countries in the world, says that property tax is to be based on the value of property. So the bottom line here is that if the assessment roll, which, as I'm sure you all know, is where an assessment, which is meant to represent market value, is published each year, if that market value isn't current and accurate, it really means that people may not be paying their appropriate share of property tax. They may well be paying too much. They may be paying not enough. And of course, if some folks don't pay enough, it means other people are paying too much. So in short, that's what a reassessment is all about. A reassessment basically says, look, we're going to look at all the properties in the town, and we're going to decide, based on sales information, et cetera, what we think the appropriate value of the property is as of a particular point in time. So the town is implementing this reassessment on the forthcoming 2024 tentative roll. That roll is being published May 1st. And we're here tonight because there's been some review and some analysis of the preliminary assessments, and we want to make everybody aware of that. There is in case anyone didn't pick it up, there is a handout up front which has various tables and a couple of letters that I'll be referring to. I apologize, we were unable to project that, but this will be available on the town's website. If not this evening, then certainly sometime tomorrow. So the important points that I would direct everybody to for your forthcoming assessment, your new assessment on the 2024 roll. There are two operative dates that govern everything with the assessment roll every year. One is called the valuation date, and one is called taxable status date. So, of course, when you get the letter that we're going to talk about, which will have your new preliminary assessment, you want to be able to look at that and decide if you think the market value indicated is fair and reasonable. So for the 2024 assessments that'll be published officially on May 1st, the valuation date is July 1st of the preceding year. So again, one important point, your assessment is going to represent 100% of value, with value being measured as of July 1st, 2023. That's point number one. Point number two, the taxable status date. The law says that whatever physically exists as of taxable status date is subject to assessment. So again, whatever assessment you end up seeing on the May 1st, 2024 tentative roll is meant to represent value based on a point in time of July 1st, 2023, and taking into account whatever physically exists on your property, the condition of the house, etc., as of March 1st, 2024. So those are important points to keep in mind when you look at your value. Now, of course, today is February 12th. So it's not March 1st, it's not May 1st. So one of the things that we want to point out is the preliminary assessment, and you'll hear me keep referring to the value on the letter you're going to be getting as a preliminary assessment. It may not be the assessment that's published on the town's tentative roll on May 1st. Why? Well, some properties might be undergoing new construction. That new construction might not yet be valued. As Stephanie and the town board just talked about, there are exemptions. The town is adopting or seemingly will adopt a new level of exemption for the senior citizens exemption. Not everyone may have applied for an exemption because that taxable status date is March 1st is also, excuse me, the legal deadline for submitting applications for exemptions. So the analysis that's been done to review the effect of these new preliminary assessments, it's still a snapshot in time. It's still subject to changes. So I don't want you to think, I don't want anybody to think that the information we talk about this evening or that you get in the letter that you'll be getting probably within the space of roughly another week or so is necessarily the end of the story. For many people, it may be accurate, but for others, it may still be subject to change. So in terms of the work that was done for the reassessment, Bob Reglio, the town's assessor, along with Stephanie Seminara, have done a tremendous amount of work reviewing the physical inventory for properties, looking at the sales of properties in the town to identify those sales that are legitimate arm's length versus some that might not be. For instance, if it was a sale between relatives, that certainly wouldn't be an indicator of appropriate or reasonable market value. And long story short, the project had recently got to the point where all of those preliminary values are set. And so I don't forget, I do want to, give my compliments to all the work that Bob and Stephanie have done. And I also want to offer my thanks to the town board for supporting this project. The town has been doing this regularly every 4 to 5 years. Again, why is reassessment important? If it's not done at a certain point, people are going to be paying an inappropriate amount of property tax. Could be more, could be less. So, I mean, look, I'll acknowledge I've never met anybody who likes property tax. Everybody thinks, the money would be better spent or better resting in their pocket. I can't argue that point. I won't try to. But as long as everybody has to pay property tax, it should be fair. That's what I think makes it, well, palatable, if I can use that word, the interests of fairness. And I have to really commend the town board for their commitment to doing this project on a regular basis. Because the more time goes by without doing this, the more likely it is that the distribution of property tax, which I think everybody knows in town, county, and school, will not be as fair as it could or should be. So some information about the cumulative overview of the town's preliminary assessments. We saw in the numbers as they presently exist, we saw what's called an average change in level of 1.61. So what does that mean? It means that on average, people's assessments went up 1.61 times, or as Bob would say, 61%. The town had been assessing at a level of 68%. The new assessments represent 100% of market value. Why? Typically, when municipalities reassess, they do it at 100% because it's the most transparent. It's the easiest for people to look at and say, well, if my assessment is at 100%, that's the implied market value of my property. Do I agree with that or not? And I don't want anybody here this evening to think that if you don't agree, you don't have recourses. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. So one of the things that I would just offer as a way that you can get some perspective, when you do get the letter that has your assessed value, it's going to show your 2023 assessed value, which was at 68%. Your new assessed value, which is meant to represent 100%. You can remember that number of 1.61. Again, this is not going to be exact. Again, assessments can still change. But if your assessment, your new assessment went up about, not exactly, but about 1.61 times, it probably means that you're not going to have a considerable tax impact. Again, one of the things that I will point out the second time is that we don't know what the new budgets are going to be. For example, we don't know how much the school tax, the taxes may go up or stay the same this coming September. We also don't know what taxes are going to be like next January. So we cannot do anything to predict taxes. The process that was used in the analysis I'm going to describe takes the most recently levied property taxes, which we know were the school taxes that you paid in September of 23, and the town county general taxes that you just recently paid last month. So those are known quantities. Everybody knows how much each of those taxing jurisdictions needed to raise. So what this analysis and process does is it says, okay, if we were trying to raise the same amount of money for the 4 school districts that have pieces of the town of Roxbury and the town and the county, but we were using the new preliminary 2024 assessments to raise those known tax levies, here's what the distribution would have looked like. Again, we're not predicting future taxes because we can't do that. We don't know what the taxes will be in September or next January. So this is as good as we can get as trying to offer some general perspective, some indicator as to whether the new assessments are affecting individual property owners, increasing, decreasing, or staying about the same. The other thing that I'll mention is that as a result of doing this process and as a result of going back to 100% of market value in the town's assessments, the town's star exemption amounts have been recertified. So for basic, what I'll just say is that if a town is not at 100%, the star exemption amounts are reduced based on the equalization rate. So with the town going back to 100%, for those of you who are still getting the basic star exemption, that amount for purposes of this analysis was now $35,010. For those of you who qualify for the enhanced star exemption, which is for folks who are over 65 and there's an income level to be met, that amount or that exemption was $94,980. So that would be a deduction against your school assessed value. I do want to say that this process does not consider the star credit checks. Some folks in the audience may be getting the star credit checks because your recent property owners, you bought your property after 2016, and at that point, new owners had to go into that. Because that is a check that's received directly from the Department of Tax and Finance, that can't be factored into the analysis that was done, which I'm going to get to momentarily. I want to assure you that you would still get your star credit check. It's just not something that can be reflected in the analysis we're talking about. So for those of you who have the handout, the third page has a table that reads Table 2. Again, I'm not going to go through this in a lot of detail, but I want to point out that this table is looking at estimated tax dollar changes. And this is all based on the new preliminary assessments, again, being used to raise town, county, and school taxes. And what you're going to see are a series of columns. The middle column has plus or minus $250. So what that's saying is, as a result of this particular analysis, the indication was that the properties that show up in this column, that their taxes changed within plus or minus $250 of what they actually paid in September of 23 and January of 24. That in effect is considered more or less no change. And then you have columns to the right, a plus 250 to 500, 500 to 1,000 and greater than 1,000. And you have columns to the left, which are minus amounts. So you can see here that this is trying to show the number of people generally who weren't dramatically affected, or who may be going up, or who may be going down as a result of the distribution of taxes based on the new values. It's fair to say in general, and I think Stephanie had referenced what's happened in the market, the increasing values. This is something that's happened in virtually all towns throughout, not even this region, but the state. I mean, I cover an area that's includes Delaware, Greene, and Dutchess County down through the tip of the island. It certainly happened in virtually every community there. And my colleagues in other parts of the state tell me it happened virtually everywhere too. So values have gone up substantially. And the only broad observation I would offer is, not surprisingly, residential housing now represents a larger piece of the town's role than it previously did. Not a surprise. So
Why are there no condominiums listed?
because the town doesn't have any condominiums.
Roxbury Run is not a condominium?
I'll defer to the
No, they're
assessors.
not, they're townhouses. We don't have condos, they're
Condominiums are a whole other thing
yeah,
under the law.
Okay.
yeah.
And the only thing I'll add to that is, if you did have condominiums, they wouldn't be assessed at market value because they're governed by another law.
Right.
So we won't go there. At any rate, what I just want to point out about this particular table is, again, if you look at that middle column, the plus or minus 250, about 48% of the properties in the town of Roxbury, and you can see they're broken out by major property type. but about 48% fall into that roughly no change category. Then if you look to the right, if I add that up, well, approximately 36% of property owners will be seeing, or seemingly will be seeing, an increase of some amount. And about 16%, if we go to the left, will be seeing a decrease of varying amounts. There is another table on the following page, table 1. Frankly, I don't really do much with this. We're showing this simply because the table with the dollar changes is table 2, and if I didn't include it, you would say, well, what are you hiding by not showing us table 1? Table 1 does this by percentages. Personally, I always find the dollar changes to be a little more meaningful to people than percentages. So I'm not really going to talk about table 1. So the next question becomes, what's the next step? What does this mean for everyone who owns property in Roxbury? The result of this process, and we have 3 examples, is something called an assessment disclosure notice. Basically, in this year's project, the town is legally required to go through this process and to send every property owner a letter that explains for your individual property the old assessment, the new assessment, and the indicated effect. So the table 2 that we were looking at shows a very broad aggregation of that for the whole town. You're going to be getting a notice that looks like this. For those of you, you're going to see 3 examples of this in the packet. If you picked up the handout, we're going to talk about this very, very briefly. But this letter will give you specific information for your property, and it also will be accompanied by a cover letter, which will be the last thing we talk about. So, of course, we're not looking to out anybody, so all 3 of these are going to have the identification information for the property owner and the location. That's all blacked out. You're going to see a little grid that'll show the assessed value in 2023. It's going to be noted that that assessed value was at 68%, the implied market value, and your new preliminary 2024 assessment, which is at 100% of value. And it's going to show the difference. Now, for those of you who do have the handout, in this first particular example, if you look at the bottom line, and again, there's going to be a little grid here, which will show the county, town, and school taxable assessed values for 23, the amount for 2024, and it's going to show a tax comparison. What presumably you actually paid in 23 for each of those 3 purposes, and the estimated redistribution for 2024. Now, I want to point out 2 things on this particular property. One, if you take a look at the assessed value here, I did the math because I was curious. This property actually went up about 1.99 times. The assessment went from 241,300 to 480,900. So it's just about 2 times, not quite. Now, you heard me say earlier that generally the average change in the town of Roxbury was 1.61. So how could it be that this property actually has an estimate of going down about $500? The answer in this case is explained by the upper right-hand corner. Any property owner who is receiving an exemption will have that exemption listed. And in this case, this particular property owner is getting a veteran's exemption, the senior citizens exemption that the town is considering enhancing, and enhanced star. So even though a property may see an increase in their assessed value greater than the average, depending on their situation and the exemptions they may or may not receive, that's going to influence the bottom line effect. So in this case, even though this particular property may have gone up more than the average, the exemptions they received still resulted in them actually having, or the implication here is that they would have a reduced tax bill. Again, implication because we don't actually know what's going to happen with next year's tax bills. So we have two more examples here just to try to show different scenarios. The next one is showing an assessed value that went from 331,000 to 565,100. Now that change is about 1.71. So, okay, it's a little bit higher than the 1.61, but not dramatically. And bottom line here is when you take a look at that grid where it shows what they seemingly paid in 23 for school and 24 for town county, and the redistributed amounts, this is one that would fall into that no change column on table 2, because the implied change, the indicated change is $100. So again, this is one that would seemingly be considered, relatively speaking, no change. And we have one more example. The third is one where the assessed value went from 86,300 to 183,300. Now, that's a change of about 2.12. That's certainly noticeably more than the townwide average of 1.61. And that's confirmed, no exemptions on this parcel or the one we were just looking at, but that's confirmed again by this little chart or grid, which shows the taxes paid versus the redistributed taxes. And this particular property seemingly would be seeing a change, an increase of a little over $500. So again, you're going to get this notice. We don't want you to be scared or frightened by this. This is meant to give you a heads up as to what's happening. And there again, this is not necessarily the end of the story. And that's where I'm going to go to the last page in the handout, which is the cover letter that you're going to be getting with this disclosure notice. This is going to tell you how to interpret this, some of the reminders of things that we're talking about here this evening, and what to do with this information. Most importantly, what I would urge everyone to do when you get this notice is take a look at your new assessment. Again, your new assessment is meant to represent 100% of value, with value having been measured as of July 1st, 2023, and whatever physically exists as of March 1st, 2024. So the homework, if you will, that all of you as property owners have is to say, well, do I think the new assessment at 100% is a reasonable and reasonably accurate indicator of market value for my property as of that valuation date? If you do, well, then you're probably okay. The reality is, and I need to say this because this is always something that it goes back to the thing we touched on at the beginning, that nobody likes taxes. So some people may say, I think my assessment is okay, but I don't like my taxes. There's nothing that Bob and Stephanie or the Board of Review can do about that. The only thing that you can do as property owners is come to a decision as to whether you think your assessment is fair. Does it represent your value, or is it an appropriate value? If you don't, and this is going to be the next step, this letter is going to have information. It's going to have the assessor's office phone number. What you will want to do is you will want to call the assessor's office to make an appointment for what's called an informal review meeting. And this will be your opportunity as a property owner to meet with Bob and or Stephanie to talk about your value. And if you feel that the value you've received is too high, you're going to want to bring something to that meeting to help explain or help justify your opinion of value. You know, again, what that might be is really, it's up to you. You know your properties better than anybody, so, you know, if you have a recent appraisal, that could be something. You know, if your property floods or whatever. But again, the point here is if you disagree with your value, you want to make an appointment, but you want to bring something to help Bob and Stephanie understand why your opinion of value is more appropriate than the value you received in the disclosure notice. That's of utmost importance, because depending on what you present to them and on whatever follow-up they do, it's possible they may want to come out and look at the property again, what have you, but your assessment can still change. If they feel what you presented is reasonable and it's justifiable, they can reduce it. And that can take place without you having to file a formal grievance with the town's Board of Assessment Review. I will say that if you do go for an informal review and you are dissatisfied, that does not in any way prevent you from filing a grievance. You can still, when the tentative roll is published May 1st, you can still, if you like, or you can certainly talk with Bob and Stephanie. But if they don't agree with your opinion of value, you are still at liberty to file a grievance with the Board of Review. The Board of Review is going to be meeting on May 30th. And again, you can certainly make a presentation to them or submit information to them to help convince them that your opinion of value is correct. The important thing here is that if you want to have an informal review meeting, you want to call the assessor's office, the number that's in the letter, no later than April 5th. Bob and Stephanie will be doing a lot of work holding these meetings during the day. They will also make some arrangements to do a limited number some evenings and some Saturdays. They want everybody to have the opportunity to discuss anything that's important to you about the new opinion of value. They want you to have that chance. So again, please make sure that you do that. The other thing here too is if for some reason you either don't want to or are unable to come to the office where they'll be doing the meetings, they will certainly hold these meetings by phone. Or as the letter states, if you want to mail in some documentation you would like them to consider, you can do that. You just want to make sure that it's postmarked no later than April 5th. And that will receive every same consideration as if you came in person for a meeting. So I don't know that there's anything else that I can really add to this. I would simply say that for all of you as property owners, you've had the opportunity for involvement in this project at different points. You may have received an inventory data mailer asking you to review the inventory characteristics of your property. Here is another important opportunity where if you want to get an explanation of how your value was determined, or if you want to offer, excuse me, an alternate or your own opinion of value, you're free to do that. Like anything, the quality of this project is going to be influenced by your involvement as property owners. So, you know, again, I certainly want to commend Bob and Stephanie and the town board for supporting this, because at the end of the day, this is all about ensuring that everybody pays their fair share, no more, no less. And again, all of you can participate in that process by reviewing the value and making sure that you think it's reasonable. And if not, please, by all means, make sure you avail yourself of one of these informal review meetings. Now, in terms of you getting these letters, I almost forgot to mention that, the letters will probably be printed either the end of this week or the very beginning of next week. So I'd like to say you probably will be getting them in the mail in roughly a week's time. You know, maybe 7 to 9 days, somewhere in there. So keep an eye out for it. Again, I'm not going to tell you they'll be arriving tomorrow, but hopefully in roughly a week, again, maybe 8, 9 days. But keep an eye out for it. It's really important for all of you as property owners and property taxpayers that you review this and you give it the consideration that it deserves. So with that, I don't know if there are any questions. I'll be happy to try to answer them, and if I can't, I'll try to get the answers.
Any questions? The board have any questions for John? No?
Thank you for your explanation.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
This is a complicated subject. We're all aware of this.
Yeah,
I have a question.
sure.
How many times is an assessment done? Is it done every year or is it done every 2 years?
Okay, good question. The assessment roll is published every year. As far as changing assessments, the assessor, for better or worse, cannot legally change an assessment unless there is either a townwide reassessment, like what's being done for 2024, or in the years where no reassessment is done, they can still make a change if there is new construction, demolition, or if there is a challenge or a question.
I'm talking about a townwide reassessment. How often is that done?
Well, Roxbury has been doing it every 4 to 5 years.
So if in the next 5 years, if the real estate market goes down,
Yes,
then the assessments supposedly would come down as well.
that is correct. That is correct. No, that's absolutely true. And we had well, within that area, the geographic area that I work, we had a lot of places that were doing reassessments around 2007, 2008, when, because of the mortgage crisis, a lot of property values went down. And a lot of property owners in those reassessment municipalities saw the proof of that. They saw their assessments go down. Now, unfortunately, they didn't necessarily see their property taxes go down. Just because the assessments went down didn't mean that the taxing jurisdictions needed less money to do their work. So there isn't necessarily a correlation, but you're absolutely right. If the real estate market goes down, the assessments should reflect that decrease in value. And then in all likelihood, the tax rate would go up. Yeah.
This bill we just paid then is under the old value.
Yes, yes. The town county bill you just paid in January was still based on your 2023 final assessment. Your new assessment will first be used in September of 24 for the school tax, and then in January of 25 for the town county. Sure.
Yeah, it was, are you guys thinking also about like how second homes, dark homes, like, are those being assessed differently or are they just being assessed similarly?
So, yeah, you're asking a very interesting question. The bottom line is that the assessor has to set value for all property. The assessor cannot say, well, let's say that we have 2 identical houses, one that's owned by someone who's lived in it for 30 years, and one, let's say, that was bought by an out-of-town buyer, but otherwise they're identical. The assessor legally cannot say, well, there are 2 different markets here. There's one for the longtime residents and there's one for recent buyers. The assessor has to take all of the sales and say, all right, what do these sales tell me? How do they inform the value of properties regardless of who owns them or how long they've been residing? Bob, you want to?
I'd like to add something to that. I don't live in the town, I work here. I treat everybody the same. In town, out of town, I don't care. What's the property worth? And the only way legally that we could have 2 classes is if the town board ever passed a homesteading exemption, which means people who actually occupy that house are taxed differently than people that don't. But I don't think the town is ever gonna pass that, because it's a real nightmare. And it's easy to treat everybody the same, which is what we do. Your house is worth X dollars, regardless of if you're in there once a year or every day.
So you're basing that on the market value or the last sale? Or,
What we will do, if you come in for an informal review, we will show you the comparable sales sheet, which are the 4 actual sales we use to come up with your property's value.
and probably their recent sale.
In the past
So, like,
4
we're saying
years,
that-
but they'll be trended. I'll explain it if you come in, I'll show you the sheet. Here's your house, here are the 4 sales we used to compare you to. Here's how it actually works. Okay, and this is how we came up with your, we do it 3 different ways, which gives us 3 different value estimates. And then I have to decide which of those 3 or somewhere in between is my estimate of what your house is actually worth. But I will be informed by 4 real sales of the same style of house that you have.
Any other questions? Okay. Well,
In the spirit of John being quite a ways away from home, if there are additional questions, I would suggest you probably contact Stephanie or Bob to specifically ask questions concerning their property.
thank you.
John,
Thank you very much, John. I appreciate your time.
Oh, my pleasure. Again, thank you
Coming
for
down to talk
doing
to
the
us.
right thing. I'll just close by saying, not a lot of places reassess, certainly not in Delaware County. But again, to the town of Roxbury's credit and to the town board members, reassessment is actually considered a sign of good governance. Not a lot of places do it, but it's the responsible thing to do. So really hats off to the town board for supporting this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you again, John. All right, moving on, we have a couple other requests to speak that I'd like to get through fairly quickly. Mr. and Mrs. Ottaway, I believe, you had a short presentation about some project you're working on in Grand Gorge.
We do. Thank you. We are hoping to buy the hitching post, which is on almost 3 acres of land, build a folklife museum, which will illustrate the first decades of the town of Roxbury. We are doing this for a number of reasons. We think that Grand Gorge needs to bring tourism to that part of Roxbury to bring it up, and needs to provide jobs. We expect to be providing about 25 jobs right off the bat. We intend also to operate the tavern, but to operate it not only for tourists coming in, but for example, during the hunting season, we'll be open at 4 a.m. We operated a tavern that was on the list of best bars in the world in New York. And we work 7 days a week, often 18 to 17-hour days. We're used to that. That's our business. And the idea is to diversify the way that property makes money. We're hoping to build 4 log cabins in the space behind the tavern. The outbuilding would be the visitor center. Each cabin would represent a group that came to Roxbury in those early years. My wife and I, my better 3/4, we built 2 museums together. I worked in the early days of the founding of South Street, and I was the historian for our Quaker meeting in New York City. We had Scudders there. And of course, the Scudders were one of the Quaker families that came to Roxbury in those early years, along with the Corbins. And so one of the cabins will be a Quaker family, one will be a Huguenot family, one will be a German family, and one a free black family. the free black community up here is a story that has not really been told very often. The other group we're reaching out to, we're working with someone, I worked in American Indian law with one of the people from the Smithsonian's American Indian Museum, who's going to be our point person to reach out to the Lenape community to involve the Lenapes in building two wigwams as part of the museum as well. The museum will also employ local craftspeople, for example, David Smith, the potter who you know from the Round Barn, has agreed to work with us, so that people will be able to come to the museum and see how Roxbury was built literally from the materials that were right here in the forest. Again, our background, who we are, as far as can we accomplish this, we've raised about $30,000 right off the bat. We had, I grew up in the family business. At the age of 9, my dad and I literally built Theater 80 from the ground up with our own 2 hands. I thought that children who did their homework after school were unemployed. So I grew up to run the family's theater. In the 1990s, 75 comparable theaters closed because of hyperinflation. My way of addressing this is I built a museum and I relicensed our tavern. And by diversifying how the property made money, we grew the economy 800% under my watch. Then when the COVID crisis happened, all 3 of our businesses were closed. 3 months after I had refinanced to pay my late brother his share of the family's business, so that his family had something to live on, our debt was then sold to a creditor company. So we lost all our businesses from an externality, not from the way we ran the business. Now, again, I don't want to keep people here. We have lots of cards. If anyone in the community that you know or you would like to talk to us about it, we'll be happy to come and have coffee and tell you what we're going to do. We have a few copies of our proposal, but also if you take one of our cards, it has our email and we will email you the proposal with photographs of what we're going to build. Are there any questions? I think that's the nutshell version.
Where do you live?
We live in Holcottsville. We are staying with another theater owner who I have to say, we had a $15 million business in New York and went from living in a townhouse to a homeless shelter. And we were taken in by Andrew Bauer up on the hill over Holcottsville. But for me, this is coming home. I spent summers in Stamford. My uncle was Everett Foreman, the town doctor there. Anyone over 60 was probably delivered by my uncle Everett. So, I climbed Mount Utzianta every summer with my cousin. So for me, this is truly coming home.
Well, what's your timeline on starting this? Have you started or?
We are trying to buy the property. One of our problems, because of our bankruptcy in the city, has been trying to get a mortgage. We have reached out to the 2 obvious groups, the Delaware Economic Development and we've been turned down. We are working very, very hard. We have not only the down payment on property, but we have a year's mortgage payments and taxes put aside. So we are reaching out, trying to find an individual who might buy the property with our money and then lease it to us. Anything, because once we get started, we know we could accomplish this as we've done it before. I was the founder and curator of the Museum of the American Gangster. For those of you who watch Mysteries in the Museum, you might remember seeing me on that and the History Channel in BBC. We got a lot of coverage. And that's one of the reasons why we're finding that we can fund the project once we secure the property. And again, I think the difference between that and another roadside bar will make a profound difference for the community.
The property has quite a history to it also.
It does. It was a speakeasy. It's very like the property we had in New York. And that part of that, we have the materials from the Museum of the American Gangster in storage, and we're hoping to place them in the tap room of the place. And of course, we all know that the organized crime history during Prohibition here is a fascinating part of the history of Roxbury. And so I think that the tavern or the bar of the tavern will reflect that as well. Yes.
I don't know where the hitching post is.
Oh, if you're coming up from Prattsville, it's that red building just as you come into Grand Gorge. It's actually 200 yards from where the first cabin, John Moore's cabin that founded Roxbury, was built. So it's right before you get to the turnoff to cut towards Roxbury.
Okay, so it's on the left as you're coming from Prattsville.
Left,
It's on the
yes,
left.
exactly. Yeah.
That's there enough parking.
There is a parking lot across the street and there is a parking lot there. We are actually looking into one of the ways of funding it is to extend the parking on the side that the tavern's on and possibly put in a charging station. Because the whole purpose is to get people to stop in Grand Gorge. The fact of the matter, that should be the front door to Roxbury. And yet it's a depressed neighborhood and it has such wonderful location. The first time I saw the place, I saw the bus Tony on to pass by, I said, this is where we have to get started. Yes, we have cards, and for a few people, we have 4 copies of the 3 copies of the proposal, but take our card and we will email you the proposal. Yes.
Have you spoken with the good people at the IDA in Delhi?
Yes, we had a public meeting where they said that our project is exactly what they're looking for, but they felt that $275,000 was too much for the property. We had showed them comparables to show that that's actually underpriced. They said, if we get a appraisal, they'll consider it. 20 minutes later, they called and said they voted on it and turned us down. So we're surprised. We're hoping that the community
Do
lets
you
them
have a
know.
current appraisal?
No, we have comparables, which shows the,
Usually the lender
the
forms the appraisal, so we were waiting to get no or go
Yeah.
forward. It's just that literally upon leaving the meeting, it was left that someone was gonna call me to give me, logistics. This is who you have to use, this is how we'll do it, and so on. Instead, I got the call 20 minutes later, so we clearly didn't wait for the
We had
information.
2 witnesses also from SUNY and David Smith to talk about the value of the community. I would be very grateful if people in the community let them know that this is a project that the community would like to see. And if anyone wants to know more about our background, we have a unique background for running museums and cultural institutions. My family has been in theater since the 1620s. So we have several theater groups that also want to do site-specific theater in the summers here when this opens up. So this really fits what Roxbury is about. When we built Theater 80, we built it on the Lower East Side. We were one of the businesses that created the East Village, which created a relationship between that neighborhood and the West Village. And I see what we're doing in Grand Gorge to be similar to what we did in creating the East Village and the West Village, is this will be the new entry to Roxbury. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the time.
I apologize, I do have to cut you off.
No.
Questions. We've got a big
Very appreciative.
agenda tonight, so
Thank you.
thank you for coming. And again, we have your information here. If anybody needs to contact you, they can certainly reach out to our town clerk as well. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. I think I'd like to go, Mary Jean, do you want to briefly talk about the library? This is an ongoing thing we've been talking about before.
Mary Jean Scudder, I'm the director of the Roxbury Library. I'll keep this brief, not to diminish our need, but just to move the evening along. We are in the throes working with PEG and the MARC project and applying for the street funds. The library is in desperate need of handicap entrance. We need bathrooms modified for handicap access and some other work needed to be done. We are getting a grant from Main Street. Sadly, we were turned down by the O'Connors for what we thought we might get for the balance. We're working hard to raise money on our own, but what we need is approximately 17,000.
So the Main Street program can fund $50,000, up to $50,000 for a project, and the owner of the property is responsible for an additional 25%. So that brings the project cost up to $67,500, which would accomplish the whole entranceway, the back, the bathroom rehab, and some other static things that are approved projects for New York Main Street.
The handicap would also include the door out of the back of the thrift shop, because right now that's just a very, very shallow landing. And it needs to go out farther and then accommodate a ramp as well. So we're not in compliance with
ADA.
anything.
So we went to O'Connor for the full 17.5, but their over 5 fund is very tight right now due to the market fluctuation. So they turned that down. I do feel comfortable going back for $5,000 for their under 5. It's a different mechanism, which leaves a balance of about $12,000 to get this completely over the finish line. So that's all I have.
Absolutely.
We have received your request, and the board members have all seen it, and we're going to discuss it and review it. So, and we'll make a decision. I'm not sure about tonight. We're down one board member again tonight.
Right. Okay.
So,
Well, I really appreciate the time tonight, Alan, and the board, and thank you all. We have 2 board members with me tonight, so we all appreciate you. Thank you.
And for full pay, that's a pretty damn good return on your investment. Right?
Yes, right.
Okay,
what-
moving on, we have a couple other things. Then I gotta get into our department reports because we got a few people here that need to get going, so. Mike, you had a brief thing you wanted to discuss with the board. Sure. I will say, before you start on this, we have considered a lot of different things for the civic center and stuff. But you had made a request to speak, so.
Yep, I'm Mike Martin. I work at the senior meal site, a lot of you know me. Right, so I spend most of my days down there at the Civic Center. But as Alan spoke at the beginning of the meeting, you know, concerning Ed Rader and his commitment and his many years of service to the town. You know, a big focus of his work was concerning the Civic Center and that. And I spoke with him many times. About every other week, he'd be in there, we'd chat for about a half hour. And it's, you know, quite apparent, you know, that his commitment and love of what he did at the Civic Center and all the scheduling and trying to get people in there. So, you know, the fact that, like I said, what was it, 28 years to put in? You know, I just think it's appropriate that the thing that he was involved with, the biggest was the Civic Center, and right now it's just called the Civic Center. I just feel like maybe like we did with this building here, we should, you know, honor his memory and his commitment to it and name it after him, you know, whatever name is appropriate, the Raider Center, Ed Raider Civic Center, whatever, but it's just a thought I had, and I think probably a lot would agree with it.
Okay, Chris, you have a brief presentation. I'm gonna have you, if you would like to get your thing set up. When I talk about the Kirkside Park, we'll have you show your quick presentation then, okay? I have some other things to get over first before we do that, all right?
So you want me to just set it up and?
Get it set up and ready, so when we talk about the park, I'll let you do your brief presentation. Mike, you're here in the back, and I know we'll start with water and sewer since you're here, because you're gonna want everybody here too. And Chris and Eli are here, we'll make it a team effort. All right. Everybody's required to be brief.
Set up and then when this. Yes.
So you have the meeting, right?
Yes.
So, I think the big item on the Roxbury Green Woods Water Project is for the board to consider change order 1 for Blizzard. They, back when we received bids, their bid was about $40,000 lower than other electrical contractors. So I think I'm not saying they were looking for changes, but I'm still gonna let the little things go that maybe a contractor that had bid more would have. There were some things that were missing from the document. There's no arguing any differently on that. So I feel that the changes are justified. And the total the change order amount is $23,500, the $400,000 contract. As I said, the next bids all started at around 450,000. So I think you're still well under what you would have paid with another contractor. I'm sure they would not have let some of these things go either. So it's my recommendation that you approve this change order for that extra work. Some of the items were for betterment of the project. One of the first things that changed out of the gate was we got an improved enclosure, sound attenuating enclosure on the ventilator. I'd say probably 5,000 or 6,000 out of that 23 were things that were added to the project and not things that were missing from the original bid documents.
Yeah, and we did end up, if I recall, we had some changes. Having to vary them.
Say it again.
The generator propane tanks, I don't know if that was under Blizzard.
Not under, no, that was a change order
With Evergreen.
with Evergreen. Yes, yes.
Is the work complete now?
The whole project is almost done. The big item we're waiting for is PW2. That was one of the items here. I passed over.
So did they bring this up to you, or did you come up with this?
They told me that, hey, this needs to get done. Our electrical sub-consultant was the source of a lot of the missing pieces. And we did talk about this at a meeting. It might be upwards of 2 years ago. It kind of started to hint that this was looming, if you will. And we just waited to gather all the items and roll them into one change order.
Okay.
So, also on the kind of another important point on the water project is you have the ability to access a small amount of more grant funds in the amount of 63,000. But in order to access that, you have to increase the project cost from 3.5 million to 3.6 million. Because you needed to, that grant is 60% of a project cost, so you need to increase the project cost to a little over $100,000. The project could use that money. This is something we talked about last year, I believe. And we needed to talk to Randy Mayer about it at that time, but unfortunately it just didn't happen. So this is something I would recommend that the board consider, but I don't know if you were able to reach Randy yet. Yeah, so one of those things that we can discuss. Along with those project cost changes is, if you remember, the project is split between the two water districts, the Roxbury Water District and the Grand Gorge Water District. We originally assumed a certain split of costs between the water districts. Due to the way that costs actually unfolded, it's different than an even split. And so that change has to be resolved before project closeout, but it could be resolved. At the same time, excuse me, we make this cost increase to leverage that available grant. All right, if you don't access that grant, you have additional costs, then you're just paying them at a 0% interest. So you might as well make the move to access the grant. Okay. Denver wastewater, as you know, we're in the midst of a study to review upgrade for the Denver wastewater plant, which serves the Roxbury run village. What we've just, a funding program has just been released that indicates that grant funding for such a project could be as much as 50%. Previously, the funding was capped at 25%. And it's something new the governor has rolled out that has ramped that up for rural areas. There are some caveats that have to get looked at regarding income levels and that sort of thing. So, you know, it's not a sure thing that 50% is there. But we feel because this just was announced, it's a good time to apply for it. And this is where this is going. In order to hit a June 15th, 14th deadline for this application, several things have to happen, including sewer district cost increase authorization, a bond resolution. But before both of those things happen, the seeker process has to be done. So basically, these funding applications require that the project be deemed, you know, ready to go and you're serious to actually do it. And so the good news is, as much as that's a short time frame, is it looks like, again, subject to talking with the town's bond council, it looks like it can all be done and squeeze, and we can fit it in. And with actions taken at regular board meetings, we may need to use one special meeting, but we'll see. But the bottom line is the seeker state environmental quality review process needs to start. And the funding agencies require that even though this is just a rehab of an existing facility, that we have to look at it like a big type, they call it a type 1 project. And so we have to do the environmental review with what's called a coordinated review. So the first step of a coordinated review is the town resolves tonight to be the lead agency on that project. Directs me to complete an environmental assessment form, which I've done. That all gets distributed to what are known as the involved or interested agencies tomorrow, if it gets adopted tonight. And then in 30 days later, you become the lead agency if nobody else says they want to do it. And I've never seen where somebody else wants to do it. This is just a process. It's just a process that you have to go through. And if you're going to get the EFC funding, you just have to go through it. So,
and just a quick overview of that. For you folks that aren't aware, the Denver sewer plant was taken over by the town of Roxbury many years ago after the original developer failed. The plant that is there, except for some of the improvements, is well over 40 years old and well beyond its useful lifespan. So we need to do something with that plant to get it serviceable. As Eli is back there praying, I understand. But we do need to make some changes to that. A portion of this also is going to be considered through the CWC or the New York City DEP as well for some programs they have. So the idea is to try to pull this together from multiple funding sources, in return keep the funds down as much as we can for the owners and residents of the run. But we ultimately pay for it. It's not something the whole town pays for. It's just the people that are connected to that system.
and the main strategy here is to come up with a cost that the folks at Roxbury Run feel they're willing to pay for this, back costs into that and make assumptions about in the report saying we're gonna get this funding, and then we submit it. Because we can't, I don't think anyone wants to adopt a bond resolution that commits anyone to pay more than people want to pay, or should pay for this. But, so that's a discussion that'll happen as this moves forward over the next couple of months, assuming it gets started tonight. If we don't do it tonight, I don't think there's any chance in hell we can make the deadline. So it's.
We have it on our resolutions. Yes. Moving on, Chris, Eli, do you guys have anything that you need to go
Well, I
over?
have some, the EPA is requiring us to create a service line inventory for lead service lines, as you know. We've sent out one mailer. We've only got about 25% back. This thing is due in October, end of October. I have to send it to the EPA. I think we need to send out another mailer. I was hoping that we could do something with the website so that people that are out of town can just plug it, utilize the website.
Sure, I'm sure you could get the information to David. They can put a page right on the website. There's probably a fillable form.
Last time we mailed it out with a set of bills. This time I think we should do it separate. Because a lot of people just got the bill, paid the bill, left the flyer in the envelope, threw it away.
I mean, from your, just briefly, I think we've kind of determined there's very, very few, if any, lead service lines.
Very few,
Here in
but
town
but the EPA is gonna say,
I know.
you need to know. And the thing is, where was I going with this? We gotta have this done by, I was talking with the Department of Health. And they said that if you can have some of these, a certain percentage unknown, okay? But you can't have 50% unknown. And, so.
The only other way to
we
determine
really need to have
I have to
homeowners
believe,
involvement.
I have to believe 90% of the, or half of the people probably don't know whether they have a lead service line or not.
Right.
So the only other way to do is go look, right?
The only is for me to go look at it myself, or,
Or get
some
somebody.
people have to go into their basement and look at what's coming through the basement wall. Is it copper? Is it plastic?
Right.
Is it,
So
I
this
think that's
part
what's
was
part of
sent
your
out with the
application.
water bill?
this was sent, yeah, but it was 8-9 months ago.
So if you don't get a water bill, you wouldn't have gotten the flyer.
You
Well,
probably
you wouldn't,
got
you
it.
didn't get a water bill, you're not on town water and it
Right,
wouldn't affect
right.
you.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, this is only for people that are on the town water.
absolutely. Anything else, Chris, or
No, that's it.
Eli, what do you got?
Keep it short and sweet. Anybody that's listened to me complain over the last month, we finally got our air compressor. That took quite a journey around the state. Bunch of shipping issues, but we finally got it, and I want to say a big thank you to Bill, and the entire highway department. One for your guys' patience while we were waiting on it, you were waiting on us. But they also unloaded it off of our truck, placed it inside of our building. Without them, this thing's 1,500 pounds. We're not picking it up, so it would have been impossible otherwise. And also for the amazing job you guys are doing at keeping that driveway pod for me. Thank you. That's a terrible driveway as it is, and keeping it pod salted is fantastic, so. I'll have more fun updates about the compressor next month. I don't want to give it away yet, but, we're trucking along.
All right. Okay, moving on, Bill. I know you've got to get going.
Can I go,
Oh, sorry.
do we need to talk about the force main access
Oh, yes,
easement maintenance?
that's right. Okay.
Do you have any questions on that? You also have that for consideration.
Yes.
I believe,
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Now,
Do
we'll
you have any
get
questions on that for me?
I don't know, does anybody have any questions? I think we're all pretty familiar with what needs to be done there, so.
Okay, just wanted to.
We'll also have to put the mowing back out for a bid because Blueback is not doing.
Yeah, we may,
Blueback didn't
I was
do it
aware
all
of
this year, so.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that, but that's okay. We have. Hey, Bill, what do you got for us? I know you want to get going.
I'll
You gotta be up early.
short, just plugging along with the weather, keeping trucks going. Got a couple down right now, but hopefully by the end of the week, we'll be back up and running. Again, just follow along. Keep the roads clear as we can, and do what we got. That's it. You guys have anything for Bill?
No. Okay, I don't think we have anything from planning board. I guess we'll do Brookside Park. Denise, you have a couple of things.
I sent you my report.
What's that? Yeah,
I sent my report and also the letter from the library that they had sent. I sent that in a separate email, so I forgot in the first one.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, and, yeah, so we're just, booking events like crazy for the summer. And, you know, spring will be here, and we'll be opening. So,
Okay.
if you have any questions for me. And you
And-
saw, like, I met with the superintendent at Roxbury. And they're kind of working with their attorneys to come up with a proposal for us. That we can then, start to get the volunteer program going for the school. And then we'll bring that to our attorney and insurance.
Okay. We have Chris Oritz here, who is working on a grant for an art project through the Roxbury Arts Group.
Yeah.
He has a short presentation for us, he promises.
Only about 2 hours. Alright, anyways, if I could get the lights. So I already submitted my grant thing, application's already sent, but the main thing is, in a nutshell, it's just, I just want to do an open, free, outdoor, pop-up neon exhibit. So the idea is just that putting some of my neon creations in the park just for, commuters or like, you know, tourists that come by and, you know, see and just like walk around and hopefully bring some sort of like attraction into Roxbury even more than what we already have. So it's just, again, just a public outdoor pop-up gallery of neon art. It can come down, comes up, non-destructive, very straightforward. So like, these are some of the location ideas that I thought might be really helpful, just because like it could be easily attached in a very non-destructive way. Like for example, on here, something can hang up there. That way it lights up this little corner, so you can go in, experience light in different color. This over here, I saw the board was completely blank, so like if, you know, temporarily put something up, put it down, good to go. So a few things can go down. Meant to be completely non-destructive and, you know, non-intrusive, not in the way of anybody's like walking ability or ability to enjoy the park, only there to just kind of like enhance and add a little bit of extra things. The
Where
grand,
is that
yeah.
photo on the left? Where is that?
Oh, this is right behind the Curbside building. So like, I thought it was just really cool. And
Yeah.
That's not part of our park.
It's- But that doesn't mean it's a no.
Yeah.
But there is a distinction between Curbside Park and the Curbside Main Street.
Yeah.
So we'll go through that when you're older.
Perfect. Okay, well, perfect either way, because the whole point of this is to meet connections and figure out where I can, where I can. I have tried to be in contact with Peg. She called me once, and after that, it's been really hard to just like find a meeting
And you
together.
got it, I'm here, so.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
I don't have any faces, but here's some other locations to consider. It's a better picture to show that, you know, that larger area, that way light bounces around. Of course, using the idea of like that open space that where the doors, if we want to put the neon in a contained space where people can walk around without having to like, you know, throw out a bunch of extension cords everywhere. Some display options, just idea of just putting it as like on the wall. I at least want to build one frame where it's just simple pop-up frame, put it on there, good to go. Take it down, good to go. And then some other ideas is like just putting like a coat hanger out there. That way I can display some things hanging down. Freestanding art where it just lays in the grass. Ideally, there would be little flags everywhere to point people don't trip here, and some string. So available neon art that I have ready to go. That's the last slide here. This is the water glyph. This one's ready. This one is just about to be processed. Supposed to look like this: yellow, pink, blue, pink again in the center, green. This one over here, an Aztec glyph of time. All this is based off like indigenous glyphs. Some other art here that's like loosely formed ideas. Let's see it.
How big are these?
Oh, these are 3x2. These are an example one is right here. Is that big?
Oh,
So
they're small. Oh, okay.
yes, so like 3 big ones, and then the rest of them are going to be pretty small. So that's the whole idea, is put that there. Another little example that I'm working on is this little bee. It'll be on another platform like that. And then, I have like 6 of these that I'm working to put together. So spring collection, spring day, put them around. There are bees in the yard, just a fun pun and it glows. And it's just meant to be fun, free, and that's it. It's just fun and free. Oh, also ideally, planned around, like holiday weekends to really maximize the amount of people coming up and down and being like, what, there's neon here, pictures, Instagram, viral, blah, blah. People start coming up more and more.
I think one thing, Chris, and I know we had this conversation a little bit, I think is as far as what weekends, we have the park a lot of weekends rented for private family events and things like that. So we have to work around the schedule that we have for people that are renting, because somebody that's doing a wedding may not want art there, or they may. So we have to kind of work around that stuff.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
that's the option, be like, do you want
Yeah.
art?
Like, I was wondering, like, is it something you would put up and leave there a week, a few days? Like what kind of time frames are we talking?
So that all depends on like what you let me do.
I guess
Weekend would be nice.
in the essence of time, what I'd like to do is have you get together with Denise.
Yeah, I think.
She's the park
and even
director.
As far as outdoor outlets, like we have one on the other side of the river, where the big soccer field kind of area is, and we have one on the island, which might be a really nice.
That would be cool.
And it would be, it would catch people's eye, and then they would go over there, like,
Yeah, and years
but
ago, we
right by
did
the barn is gonna be more intrusive to people having events. But if we could shut it off, like,
Yes.
but there's also no outdoor electricity there, so.
The island, particularly by the gazebo, is a very cool spot. There was a sculpture garden there one year.
Yeah, I think that'd be
It's,
great.
and the Mark Project owns the Crookside building, so, we'll talk.
Yes, perfect. That's exactly what I wanted, was just to find the faces of who I've been told to talk to.
There you go.
And then that way we can really figure it out. Again, it's just, it can easily just show up for a day, disappear, work around everyone's schedule. The main thing that I just want to attract is just when there are tourists around for them to stumble on. Of course, I'm going to do through the grant. I'm going to use some of that money to advertising, throw some signs, do some digital advertising so it pops up in Albany, New York, and people, so that way, like on their phones while they're scrolling, like, oh, there's a gallery event that's outdoors and free, and it's on my way up to wherever, so kind of get that.
How late at night would they be lit up?
Whatever you let me do. So ideally, I only want to go up to like maybe 11:30, just because like no one's gonna really be out walking around past that. And all of these can be set with dimmers and timers. So that way, also I live like up there on New Kingston Mountain Road, so I just drive down, do like midnight, hop it in the car, the ones that I can, and then drive it back up, bring it back down. Get it.
Yeah, I was just saying that the other thing that I thought of was, the park has tons and tons of dog action, so, as far as like taking care of your art. And,
That's one thing I didn't think about, so that's good to know.
yeah,
Like,
so,
a
and
ton
then
of
it's
dog
like, I wouldn't want it damaged, so I don't know how you kind of police that.
That's true. All right, I'm gonna brainstorm that. But one really good thing is just knowing where I can and can't put it, and then that way I can really like center it and figure out how do I make sure
Yeah.
that dogs don't go explore. Because I've got a dog too, and he loves to run. So that's the last thing I wanted was to run into a bunch of glass.
So
Right,
put
right.
them high up,
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
so.
Or,
Okay,
Yes.
thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Much appreciated.
Fast and to the point.
Apologize for having to keep it so short, but we've got an awful lot to go over yet tonight, so.
oh, boy.
Okay, Peg, why don't you,
All right,
we got a lot to talk about too, but
This month is, the community development block grant, that's for owner occupied, income eligible home repair for the entire municipality. We sent out the first step of the process, which is the notice of intent to request release of funds. That will be in this week's paper. It went to the agencies that are required to receive it as well. And then we go ahead and submit the release of funds after the comment period is over. We develop the applications. We put out a call for participation while the town appoints a community-based committee to review applications and projects. So that all has to happen between now and the end of April. Okay, got it? So, questions? We don't know. Oh, read about it. Questions?
Okay, next. Comp plan. We held focus groups. A survey is currently being formed. It will be available digitally. It will be available in hard copy. And just keep in touch. You'll be getting postcards saying where you can get one or have it snail mail to you. As much of these as we can get out and get feedback from is important. That's the next stage of the comp planning process. Questions? I'm going too fast for anyone? No, good.
Just quickly, have you, I talked to the planning, the county planning office, have you incorporated them in this
Yes, they're
process?
working on the maps and, yeah, they're totally. working
I
with
know
us.
they did a bunch of maps for you, but.
They did a bunch of maps.
Okay.
We got it. Right, Mike?
Yep.
Did I miss anything?
Not yet.
Okay, good. Roxbury Main Street, you'll notice that there are some buildings that have been spruced up, like the post office, Roxbury General, Roxbury Wine and Spirits, Watershed, and Good Grocery. We're still looking to work with the library, the Roxbury Arts Center, and a couple of properties. We do need to get this kicked off as soon as possible because we need to finish them all by next December. So, hence their request for some help. And finally, I sent Alan, and I don't know if he forwarded the information to you guys about getting a pro housing community designation. Did you send it on?
No.
Okay, so what this is. Go ahead.
I said I got tied up, but I didn't.
Okay,
send to
so
them.
I'll send it out to all of you guys tonight, but it's really quite a benign request for authorizing Alan to submit a letter of intent to apply for a pro-housing community designation. This is a new program that the governor has out that allows you to be awarded priority points on several grant applications from other agencies once you get the designation through Homes and Community Renewal. And anyone who knows about the Main Street program or anything like that, that's the agency that we get CDBG from, Main Street, things like that. So pro-housing community program is part of the governor's push to increase housing availability in any community. And for those of you who know anyone young or maybe old who needs an apartment or a place to live, housing is an issue. So this is about communities getting online to really start looking at properties that can be redeveloped, or it doesn't necessarily have to be affordable housing. It can be ancillary housing. It can be single family. So to that end, this you submit, and Hiram, this will bring you into the fold. To apply, you need to submit the last 3 years of permitting for housing. And if within the last 3 years, the town has reached 1% of their permitting was for housing, they will get the designation. And I do intend to work with Middletown on this as well. And so I think it's what's going to happen is it's something where the government doesn't come in and tell you anything. But if you show that you're really trying to address the housing issues that you have in your community, you're getting a benefit. So, you know, as I said, they're not going to come in and say, okay, we need to put 40 million, townhouses here. It could just mean that we want to develop 5 ancillary housing units in the town. So it's a very positive thing, and I'm going to ask that we get this done ASAP. Because we want to get the designation as soon as humanly possible. As grant season is forthcoming.
Does anybody have a problem with allowing me to draft a letter or working with Peggy?
The only thing the letter will say this. As town supervisor of the town of Roxbury, please accept this as my notice of intent to apply for a pro-housing community designation. That's all it's gonna say.
If you guys can make that resolution and second, we'll do it tonight.
Just need a motion. I'll send you everything.
Motion.
Any questions?
I'll make it.
I'll second it.
All right. All in favor? Aye.
Any questions?
Okay, that grant for the library, that has to be used by December 2024 or December 2025.
2024.
Now, do you send out the RFPs for construction? Okay, let's work on that right away.
Well, we gotta make sure you got your plan.
We'll get the money.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, anything, Peg, you have anything else for us, or does anybody have anything for you?
I just had a question, if you don't mind. You said something about the revitalization of Main Street. Just want to let you know you guys have two Main Streets.
Oh, yes,
There's
we're
one in
going.
Roxbury, there's also one in Grand Gorge.
And I've worked with Grand Gorge. Grand Gorge was actually the first Main Street program.
There's a
we ever
lot
did.
of stuff needs to be done in
I
Grand Gorge,
understand, and I
not just
agree.
repainting,
I understand and I agree, but part of what makes a Main Street program work,
correct?
and this is really important,
People,
is the owners have to be willing to participate. And they have to be willing to follow the rules.
they have to
So-
know the rules and they have to
Well,
be given the information
It's
correctly.
it's been done, and it will be done again.
Okay,
And Nancy has been with me at a lot of many times
so
trying
we
to
need to
get.
knock on some of the doors again,
Okay,
correct?
Okay,
so really, I'm well aware of needing Grand Gorge.
okay, anything else for Peg? We'll move on. All right, moving on, Stephanie, you're here, do you have anything more to say?
I
Anything you
don't,
cover
believe
what
it or
we
not.
promised here?
It's unbelievable.
I'm trying to get you guys out of here if you want to leave. so. Okay, we have Hiram Davis here, our new code enforcement officer. Wanted to introduce him. I know he was here at a meeting a couple weeks ago. Hiram, do you have anything you needed to discuss with us with the board or?
I was just here in case anybody had questions.
Okay. Fair enough.
When is your time, when you're in the town hall? If people have issues or want to talk to you?
The best time is just like Tommy did, the 1 to 4 on Friday.
Okay.
I actually try to come Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, but Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, it's from like 3 to 5, and it depends if I have other inspections. So Friday, I stay here in the office.
Okay, 1 to 4, thank you.
Okay, I don't think we had anything from the planning board. Building and grounds, a couple things we talked about the library already and what we're doing there. As far as the civic center goes, we've had multiple people request use of the civic center, which as many people know, Ed handled the calendar and handled doing all that for the civic center. I have spoken with Mike Martin, who also does the senior citizen cafeteria up there, and he's willing to work with the calendar and coordinate people using the space. So Mike also does the cleaning in the civic center, so we'll work out with him what we need to do additional for him to take over some of this other stuff for now. Going forward, we'll have Diane can provide Mike's number for anybody that's requesting use of the building. And I did speak with Susan. She gave me some of the information that Ed had and what they were using for pricing and things like that. So we'll get that more formalized and get it to you so that we can work forward. So, I can work with that. I've got some of that information, Mike. I can get that to you later.
Okay.
So. Everybody okay with?
Yeah.
Mike doing that?
What's your number, Mike? 588.
Well, 607 434 1326.
So anybody else contacts? I got a couple.
Yeah, I have somebody that contacted me.
Yeah. Makes it easier if one person in the world controls the calendar. More than one people are involved, it's a problem. Okay, nothing from our health officer that I know of. Did I miss anything? We do have some old business we need to take care of. I need, as supervisor, need to reappoint Kenneth Davy as deputy supervisor. And he needs to take his oath within 30 days, which apparently he didn't do the last time I appointed him, so we'll work on that. Was there anything else I needed to do with that, or it's just, he's just got to come in and make that? Okay. All right, we did get several letters to the board this month. I think everybody's received them and been through them. We've discussed them. We did have a couple letters concerning the vacant councilman seat for Mr. Rader. The board at this point is, I guess it's safe to say we're still considering. We do need to adopt somebody. We don't need to do it tonight. We do need to adopt someone to fill Ed's vacancy until the end of the year. And the remainder of his term will be available on the ballot. If anybody that wants to run for this term, it's available on the ballot for 3 years, starting January 1st. So that's the way that works. Anybody who's interested in running should contact the Board of Elections and make sure that you get proper petitions and everything that are needed to do that, to become a candidate. And we've had some inquiries and people interested in it, but that is the process we have to follow. And if there's any questions, you can reach out to the Board of Elections. We've had a couple letters concerning short-term rental fire inspections. While Hiram is still here, one of the things he's going to be working on, we have not decided exactly what we need to do yet, but we will be doing inspections going forward of short-term rental properties that are existing. We may need to introduce or implement a registration procedure for that. And when we do that, if there's a fee, we will probably incorporate a fee to offset the cost of the fire inspections that we need to do. Don't have anything definite on that at this point, but that's where we're at.
One other letter we need to add, because I got it late after the agenda was done, was for residents that the OSDR owner should have to pay for fire inspections. I got a letter from Jane Mangenheim and Rob Young. I'm the same.
Okay. Okay. All right. Page 2. So we did get to the question, Danielle, vocal. I see she's on Zoom, so Danielle, if you're still on Zoom, you can get in touch with Mike and give us what you need, what your plans are, and we'll get it scheduled and figure out what we need to do.
Okay, yeah, I am still here, Alan. I was just wondering as far as like requirements for insurance wise, I guess, for a program like that.
Diane talked to me about that earlier today. I need to check into that a little bit more and I'll get back in touch with you, figure out what we need. Okay.
Perfect, thank you.
I gotta touch base with our insurance company and get some more information on what we plan to do there, so.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Discussions from residents. We're at that point tonight. I think we've had a lot of discussion already, but if anybody has anything brief that they would like to discuss, I'd be glad to entertain it now. Otherwise, we're going to move into resolutions. Everybody's happy. We'll move into resolutions. Okay, start with department reports. We have town clerk monthly report, supervisor's monthly report, assessor's monthly report, water district monthly report, justice court monthly report, parks department status report, code enforcement officer monthly report, and a dog control monthly report, which was not received. Need a resolution for that?
Oh my God.
A second? I'll second it. All in favor? Aye. You need to accept the resignation of Joanne Bartley as our justice clerk effective 1/16/24. We are currently looking and have advertised for a new justice clerk. Currently, the justice clerk from Middletown is filling in right now on a part-time basis, but we do need to find someone. Spoke with one of our justices this weekend. He says so far he does not have anybody who is interested in the position. I know we did advertise it. I don't think anything came out of that either at this point. So
So if Sandy's back, are you gonna be reappoint her for clerk, or how is that going?
well, she's been filling in at this point. I mean, I don't know if we need to reappoint her on a permanent basis, or I guess we'll have to talk with her and find out what she would. No, she didn't want to do it. She's doing it just part-time now.
Well, what's the rate of pay?
I don't know at this point. I'll have to talk with her and find out. So,
Well, I think you guys set the rate of pay.
yes, but I'm not ready to do that quite yet. I gotta figure out more about what's going on. Jerry didn't seem to know much either about it, so I'll have to find out from him. And our Roxbury water clerk,
Can you accept the resignation of Joanne Bartley then,
yes,
please?
I'll make that.
I'll second it. All in favor? Aye. We're gonna table the new clerk for now. Roxbury water clerk, we have someone doing it now. What date do we need to, can we make that effective back to the date she started, or has she not started?
She hasn't started yet.
No, she hasn't yet, okay. So we
She's
do it,
supposed to be coming in Friday to get everything.
okay.
Would we make it effective today or Friday or?
I guess we'd make it effective with this meeting, and she would start whenever it starts.
Well, she hasn't started yet,
Yeah.
so
Whatever the date
she
she
should
gets here.
start when she gets the stuff, and
Yeah.
that's when we'll be going over some stuff.
Yep. Need a resolution for that? I'll make that motion. Second, in favor. All right, tax collector would like to appoint Carolyn Frost as the deputy tax collector. We need a resolution for that. I'll make that motion. Second. We need a resolution to appoint the Catskill Revitalization Court representative. I'm currently in that position, and I'm willing to continue unless somebody else wants to. I'll make the motion for Alan to continue. Be happy to pass it along if somebody else wants to do it. Okay. All in favor? Aye. We need to reappoint Diane Monroe to the planning board for the term 2/12/24 through 12/31/28. Since she did not also take her oath and undertaking at our organizational meeting. So.
I'll make that.
Second, I'll second it. All in favor? Aye. Same thing with Michael Mathis, who was also appointed, and he did not take his oath, so he needs to be reappointed. All right, I'll make that motion. And we need to appoint Young Summer LLC for legal services and the town attorney, who have been doing it for many years and very happily.
I'll make that.
Second it. All in favor? As Mike discussed earlier, we need to approve the change order number 1, contract number 4 for electrical work with Blizzard Electric. There's a change order of $23,500 for a total contract of $423,500. Need a resolution for that. I'll make that motion. Second. All in favor? Aye. All right, we need to appoint lead agent or accept the position of lead agency for the Denver Sewer Wastewater Treatment System, again, as we discussed earlier. We need a resolution to have the town of Roxbury be the lead agency for that.
I'll make that.
Second? Yeah, I'll second. All in favor? Okay, we need a proposal. Our engineer, or Lamont has given us a proposal for design and bidding services that we need for this Roxbury force main access and maintenance. We went through all this last summer. When the weather dries up and if they can work in there, we need to get in place. Just a note that the funding for this will come through the New York City's maintenance program, so it's not coming back to the town. It is actually covered fully through the maintenance and operations for the sewer force main. Need a resolution for that? I'll make that motion. Second. Okay, we need to advertise bids for highway diesel to be open March 8th at 2 p.m.
I'll make that.
Second. Second. All in favor? Aye. And the same advertised bids for highway material hauling to be open March 8th at 2:15. First one would be at 2, this would be at 2:15.
I'll make that motion.
Second. Next one, we need to approve the liquor license request for Roxbury Motel Properties through Geary Roxbury LLC, who are the new management company, I believe. I don't know that they own it yet, but they're definitely a management company operating the facility. And there's 3 properties involved. In addition, we need to, if you guys desire, waive the 30-day hold on the application, which is something we typically do.
Can I ask a question on that? Where are they gonna sell the liquor? In the motel?
They do, they don't have a bar per se, but in each of the units, they do have beer and wine available, and they do like room service with beer and wine, things like that.
So they have a liquor license now?
Yes, yes.
Oh, this is just a renewal.
Yeah, this is just, they're actually, their management is changing. and
Yeah, I
The
know.
management company needs to have the license in their name.
Oh, okay.
So they're basically, it's just a change on the liquor license.
I'll make that.
Second? And we need a resolution to adopt the updated fair housing policy per the changes and comments that Kristen did. I don't know if she's still on there. Yes, you are, Kristen.
I don't know if you're ready to do that, maybe you will, or if anybody got back or anything.
That's why, Kristen, did you have anything? I'll let her. See if she's done. I talked to her about it earlier today. Oh, we'll get back to that as she comes on. We need to appoint, which I don't know that we've really discussed this yet, a new soil and water, Schoharie water, what is it? Schoharie water?
Well, we need to do the final budget transfers.
Oh, that's right. I missed that. Okay. Final budget transfers for the year 2023, which I understand are very minor. I do need a resolution for that.
I'll make that motion.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
But now we can do the one I just talked about. The soil and water, Ed Rader has done this for many years. Again, we will need a representative to take that on. I'm not sure.
This is the Harry Watershed
Yes,
Advisory.
the Watershed Advisory Council for Schoharie Watershed, yes. We don't have to pass that tonight. I don't believe, if you guys want to think about it a little bit.
Yeah, I wanna know, like, one is.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll table that for now. Same thing with committee appointments. I think we will table that for tonight. We'll discuss it a little bit more. We're kind of down on council out with Macker being out sick, so we're gonna talk about that together. Maybe do that for the next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, we discussed earlier the Civic Center rentals now to be scheduled and fees collected. It's going to be Mike Martin who talked about that. As I said, we want to discuss pay rate for this. A fireworks contract, you all received copies. of-
For possibly more.
Kristen, was that you?
That wasn't me, Alan, but I actually.
Alex.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Macker.
Hey, Alan.
Yeah.
Hey, Personnel Committee. We're talking about that. I will go with Mike if you want to make a resolution on that.
Okay, that's fine. We're okay with that? Second
So
then?
you have another.
Yeah,
Or
we
you're
still
gonna
have
just
the
do that
rest
one
of them.
tonight and then the other one that Ed was on next time, or?
We're gonna talk about them all.
Yeah, let's just table them for tonight and we'll talk about them and do it next month. I think we've got to discuss a couple of things with them, so. Kristen, I saw you were just on there. I did have a quick question for you.
Sure.
Concerning this fair housing policy. I talked to you earlier today. I reviewed it. I think everything seems fine. Peg also, she's just left, but Peg did tell me today earlier that she's comfortable with the way the language is written. So I think we're okay to go ahead and approve that if that is acceptable.
That sounds great. I didn't hear anything back. I don't know, just as long as the fair housing policy, that has the more specific provisions in there. So long as that works for the board and primarily for you, Alan, since you're going to be doing that, the majority of that in that you would be the fair housing officer, then I don't see any reason why not.
Okay. So I guess we can do a resolution to adopt that policy as it was.
I'll make that.
Just a quick background, this is another one of the policies that when we do grant work, we look at, especially when we get into doing housing grants, the state favors when we have a good fair housing policy in place, so it's important to keep that up. Okay, we have a resolution and second on that.
Yep.
Okay, approved. We have a resolution for the fireworks contract for the Labor Day weekend.
What are you doing for the Civic Center? I know that's Mike Martin. Are you holding off on a rate?
Yes, we are holding off for right now on that.
Approve
Yes,
if he does.
Mike
that?
has agreed he will do it while we get the details figured out. So, but I just want to take a little time and talk with Mike a little bit more before we decide exactly how it's going to be. Okay?
I'll make that.
I'll second it. All in favor? Okay, we have the updated lease for Conliff.
You've got the fireworks contract.
I thought we just did that. Okay.
No.
All right, I need an authorization for
I'll make that.
in a second. Not second. All right, all in favor? Aye. Sorry, I thought that was the last one. And the next thing is the updated lease with Conliff for stone storage on County Route 41. We have not received comments back from the landowner yet for that. Is the board okay with just authorizing me to sign it once we get the final wording? If she's got any changes?
Yeah.
All right, can you give me a resolution to do that?
I'll make that
We'll have another board meeting about it.
No, second it.
All in favor?
Bye.
Need a resolution to authorize the supervisor to execute the contract for emergency service for water and sewer repairs with Humboldt Inc. They've responded back with their insurance information. That we do this every year. We have about 4 contractors that we use. Humboldt is one of them.
I'll make that.
Second? Second it. All in favor? And we need to approve the not-for-profit agreements with Delaware Historical Association, Roxbury Senior Club, Roxbury Library Association, Yellow Church Cemetery, Roxbury Cemetery, and the amounts are listed. These are all agreements for.
I'll make that.
1 second.
Yep, I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye. We need to schedule a public hearing for the MTC franchise agreement renewal, which is a 15-year agreement. I did speak with Kristen about this earlier today. She's fine with us going ahead and setting the public hearing for March 11th at 6 p.m. And what we will do is between now and then, Kristen will get in touch. She had some comments, and as did our insurance company on the actual agreement. So she says she will get in touch with MTC directly to work through the changes that are needed. And then we'll do the public hearing for the agreement on March 11th. So I think most of the changes are pretty minor. It's just clearing things up. Kristen, do you have anything else to say about that?
No, overall, I've heard positive feedback regarding the current franchise. So that's really good to hear. I don't anticipate there being an issue, but I will go ahead and reach out to the MTC folks and see if they can send it over to us. And if there's any other additions or items that you wanted me to raise with MTC, just let me know. Otherwise, I'll just go ahead with what I put together.
Okay, sounds good. So we'll go ahead and schedule the public hearing. We'll do a resolution to schedule that public hearing, so that can be on our book next month.
Make that motion.
Sorry.
I can't. That's okay. And we've all received the information and discussed the library additional amount of funding requested from the ARPA funds. What is your pleasure? Would you like to table it and discuss it a little further before we make a decision? Or are you okay with doing it tonight? Macra, you're on there as well, so we can table it and look at it a little later on. I don't think there's any real urgency to do it tonight. I think that the process is in the works anyway. If we want.
There is urgency.
Well, you've got to get started with it. I realize
Right, we need to put
Yeah.
bids out and everything like
Right,
that. Yeah.
right.
So we need to know we have the funds before we can do the bids.
So
What's
it
your
would be
pleasure?
12, how much would it be?
We
12?
need 12,500.
12.5.
I'm okay with it. ARPA funds.
If they're using ARPA funds, I'm good with it. Okay, Macker, you're on there. I don't know if you have any comments or not. He's muted. All right, that being said, we need a resolution to approve it. I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We'll start right away. We can do that.
Okay, you heard the presentation about the neon art display. Does anybody have any concerns with allowing that in Brookside? I don't know that that needs to be a resolution, but. Can we hold that up till we talk to Denise? Yeah, I think we should discuss it further, but going forward, I think. I don't have any issues with it as long as you work with Denise and get it coordinated with what she needs to do. And work around her schedule, because as I said, that is kind of a priority. So. Hiram, you're still here. I see we've got something on here about building permits for churches and not-for-profits. Is there something you needed to talk about with that?
Actually,
Or
Hiram,
did you-
and I have been discussing some different things, as far as building, what our building law is, and I support him in this, to do the building code that you have, and there are some things that we haven't been doing over the years, and he wants to enforce that, so. But my question was, one of the things that was brought up, which he had asked me about, was building permit fees for any not-for-profit type people, basically properties that are in the full exempt portion of the roll. Churches, libraries, anything like that. When I started, I was told that we didn't charge those for building permits, but technically they're not exempt from that. So I don't know what you want to do about that aspect of it.
So the reason this was brought up, which we're trying to direct it before it turns into an issue, but it's an inconsistency.
Okay.
You know, the building code itself does not exempt not-for-profits. And to my knowledge, as it is now, the town didn't do anything to exempt not-for-profits, and I'm not even sure that they can. But we're just looking for some, level ground here to figure out, number one, we don't want the town to find itself in a liable place for exempting, for a charge. Because if somebody else, biggest thing with the building code industry is consistency. If you're inconsistent, then they start getting you for selective enforcement and different things like that. So I just want to protect against an inconsistency. If there's no resolution, if it's possible to do it that way, there's nothing in the building code that exempts a not-for-profit. So technically, another homeowner could come in and say, you didn't charge them, you're being inconsistent. And it could open us up. So
I don't know the answer to that, and you might need to talk to Kevin Young or something.
Yeah,
but-
I was just gonna say, I don't know, if Kristen heard that. Were you on, did you hear that, Kristen, what we were talking
Yeah,
about?
I did. You know, it's interesting. I have not seen tax exempt property owners be exempt from building permit fees before. So I admittedly haven't specifically researched that issue. I haven't seen it done before, but I can take a look at that. But I would agree. I mean, I would think that that would be, you know, those fees would be applicable to
I
all.
can tell you, in Middletown, the only
Mhm.
thing that don't pay for fees is the municipality. If the town itself's getting a permit for something
Right.
we're doing, in Middletown, everything else pays the fees.
What comes to mind that I was concerned about with this and what I wanted to discuss, to find out a little more about anyway, Kristen, is what about things like NYSEG and some of the other utilities that are actually, they're exempt properties as far as taxes go, but when they do a construction project, I don't think we certainly want to exempt them from building permit fees.
No, you think if they did anything, they get charged just like DEP.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And then
Right.
Yeah,
DEP is
no,
another one.
this is people in the wholly exempt portion of the law.
So it would be.
Churches.
Churches.
Special
libraries,
franchise, special franchise organizations.
Yeah,
It'd be something to look at.
Yeah,
Sure.
maybe we should, I think we should look into that a little more, Kristen, and get some more information maybe about that.
That sounds fine. Yeah, I can take a look at that for you.
Okay,
the other thing that, just so you guys, in case you get any calls, because you might. And Michael might, don't mean to speak for you, but correct me if I'm wrong. But as part of the code, all permits are supposed to be kept up to current too. So basically what we've started doing is anyone who has a really old open building permit, we are charging them if they're gonna put in for a CC or a CO. We are charging them back all of those years of fees.
Consistency becomes the issue here. So, but you'll probably hear things. So what we need is the support of the board. You know,
How does one check to see if you did have a project and you thought it was finished? But according to you.
We have all the years of who applied for renewals and COs, CCs, everything.
so if you had a permit at some point in time and you're not sure if it's closed, you could just contact us. We could look it up and tell you.
And shouldn't you get a CO for that? If
You
it's
should have
closed?
got a CO or a C of C, certificate of compliance.
Right, oh, okay.
And the way the code works is, you know, a lot of people rely on their contractor to do the whole thing for them. Permit is issued in the homeowner's name regardless of who gets the permit. And the homeowner then is responsible to make sure the permit's closed as well. That's all on the permit application and everything. It says all that. But it's not uncommon for somebody to just not know. They never get the C of C or C of O in the mail and things sit for a long time. So there's probably one other inconsistency we should bring up a little bit that I have found and it seems to, and Peg already left, but it seems to only be with the Mark project. They tend to give us a scope of work for a renovation and they break it down into individual pieces. The way the building code is worded, when somebody gets a permit for a renovation, the entire renovation falls under the permit. You don't pick out pieces and say, well, this doesn't need a permit, this doesn't need a permit, this doesn't need a permit. If you did that by itself, you might not have needed a permit. But when it's part of a whole renovation that requires the permit, the whole thing is part of the project, which also falls under the permit fees.
And I had a discussion with Peg about that today. And what she would like to do, and I'll get together with you privately about it afterwards, but she would like to have a meeting with you and myself and try to go through that and figure out what we need to do there. So
Okay.
we'll figure it out. But basically, from what I'm told through the Mark project is whatever, like the housing rehab grants and everything that they do, the individual homeowners are responsible to get their own building permit. Mark does not get involved directly with applying for building.
But the truth is, every homeowner is responsible to get their own building permit anyway.
Right, they're a funding source, but they're not really the ones that that are responsible for doing the individual permits. So anyway, I'll get together with you. I had a conversation with Peg earlier this afternoon about that.
By the way, that is the only organization that that's done for.
Yeah.
And which means it's inconsistent.
So we need to find out more about that. I told her I would talk with her, so.
Thank you for all the work you're doing.
Yes.
What that's not an easy.
I'm trying to get my hands around it. It's still a battle, but.
Yeah,
we'll
no,
get
thank
there.
you for all your work.
Okay, we discussed earlier the request for the use of the Civic Center, by Danielle Gopel for a basketball program. She's asking about pricing on that. I'd like to table that until I can discuss with her what the involvement is and what I'm not 100% sure what. You guys are okay with that. Other info for discussion. You've seen the water project costs. We did do a harassment, discrimination, violence program last week. What?
Resolution to approve the income?
Oh, it's not on there.
Yes, I'll make that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It isn't on there, you're right. All in favor? Aye, okay. That's we mentioned that.
All that work and gets good.
Okay, I do have one very brief thing we need to discuss in executive session, so nobody has any other comments. We'd like to request an executive session to discuss a personnel matter. I'll make the motion. Second.
Second.
Okay,
Isn't that something too?
Knack is there.
We're done.
That's fine. We are done except for that one brief matter that we have to discuss after we have the executive session. And pay the bills.